Hi, Off-Road Guy here, and today we're going to be going through in basically the install on my wife's Power Wagon, the air compressor that I just bought, which is an ARB CKMTA12. It also comes in 24, but this is the 12 volt version instead of the 24 volt. This air compressor I find is one of the highest CFM that's available on the market right now that I've seen. I have the same one on my Dodge Cummins. And here's what it comes with. You got the compressor. This is the wiring harness. This is mostly if you have air lockers. So mostly I'm not going to be using that. Comes with a switch. And this is the harness for the power to the big infuses. And then these air filters, which I think these are pretty cool. They're little brass air filters. It's supposed to filter down pretty small micron. And it comes with two of these. I've also bought this is right here. This is a V-Air piece. It's a one-way check valve. I'm not sure if it's needed on this unit because I believe this is designed to set up to run independently of it's on it and have everything in it, but I bought it anyway just in case. And an air hose, which you need this. I know this is stainless steel. It doesn't necessarily need to be that, but it needs to be a hose that's capable of holding up to a higher temperature. Usually from when you're with compressors, when you compress air due to the thermal dynamics of when you compress air, it heats it up, and when you release compressed air, it cools. It produces a lot of heat. So with this is specifically for air compressors, and it's made by V-Air too. I also bought a pressure gauge with a mount, and it didn't come with the exact switch, so I had to find another switch to install in its place, because the one it came with for some reason was a momentary switch, which I just needed on and off. So I have to mount that. I've bought some brass fittings, like this one. I'm going to be running the like some people would just take and screw the air filters right into the air compressor. But since I'm going to be mounting this unit underneath the bed, I'm going to be running a hose up to a higher spot for in case you get, off when you're off road. It's a lot of times you'll take and dunk the truck down in the water, and I don't want water getting into my air compressor. So I'm going to run a hose up to basically just underneath the hood area. And I've also built this plate. I know it has a bunch of holes in it, so that I can mount it underneath the bed. This is a fairly heavy compressor setup, but you can see, and I've already taken out some of the screws. See these screws here? So I've taken the screws out, and this mounting plate here, I usually take it off and then mount it up and to the plate. Like I did the same thing on my Dodge Cummins, and then I take and lift the compressor up underneath and bolt it up to this mounting plate here. So here it is mounted up. I took and drilled it, and then I took and mounted this up to the truck once already, and then took and put the compressor up there and found out that where I'd put the compressor too far next to the frame of the truck. Basically, underneath the bed there is a threaded insert underneath there that I took and cleaned up already. That isn't being used, so I took and cleaned it up, got the thread pitch, which it's a metric one, and then in that same section further away, I just took and drilled a hole, and I made up this little, basically, it's a large washer with a large washer with a nut welded to it, and then I welded a little 1/4-inch bolt, long one, so because the bottom of the bed it's like a piece of square tubing, so I'm going to take and fish this in there, push the bolt up through this plate and through the frame of the bed to bolt this to it. Alright, so here's where I'm mounting it. I'm on the passenger side of the truck. You can see right here is the frame. Here's the outside body of the bed, and here's right here, that's the cab. You can see right here I'm going to be using this threaded hole in the bed, and then I took and drilled this one in the bed where you can see there's an open end here for me to slide that piece in. So I'm going to get to mounting that plate. Alright, and there it is, all mounted up, the plate, ready for the air compressor. See what I mean, where I originally drilled the holes, how the frame is right here? I had to move it over a little. Alright, and for the air intake, I showed you the two air filters I had plumbed together with 3/4-inch hose. I've built this, and basically if you see the two barbs here, I'm going to take and run little short hoses and run it to this, so I do one large line instead of, in two smaller ones, which it's in the book it has a certain size you're supposed to run depending on the length. I'm not sure how long it's going to end up being. You figure because I'm mounting it into the bed, and I'm going to be running the air intake all the way along the frame till it's under the hood. Alright, so here you can see I mounted up the air compressor, and you can see that I've also installed part of the air intake, right? You can see the two lines come into the big piece of brass there, and then I've also started wiring it up some. I've started by the big plug here and ran this is basically just positive and negative. And so for this one, for the positive, I took and ran a 2/0 cable back here. I know you're thinking that's probably pretty large for these air compressors, but I didn't. This isn't just for the air compressor. If you see here, my wife has an 800-watt amp for her truck for a subwoofer, and I do this anticipating adding things like the air compressor. So as you can see here, there's the two fuses for the air compressor. It comes in here, and I bolt it together with cable. And then a cool thing about it is on the frame here for the negative, I found this little eyelet already on here. Dodge must have installed it for some feature. Maybe it's for the diesel model or something, I'm not sure, but I just found it here. So I bolted up, it was really nice, I bolted up the negative cable to that. So ARB with this compressor gives you this huge wiring harness. And this wiring harness too, this is for like if you're installing you need this if you're installing the compressor, but it's mostly for if you have ARB air lockers. It runs to the switch, to their custom switches, and I decided not to use that. I found a connector that's exactly the same, because basically we're just going to be running to an on and off switch. So this is the connector for turning the compressor on, and I found this in my wiring at work. It's the same connector, so I made it up into, and then crimped on a Deutsch plug on the other end. And now I'm running the wiring so that I can run into this gauge and the on and off switch that I'm going to mount under the seat with a 220 psi gauge. The gauge is made by Vixen Air. I found it on Amazon for a good price. So, well, I got the pressure gauge installed in the on-off switch. And the compressor now turns on. Not that it's hooked up to anything, and the intake isn't on yet, but that's to come. And Although I don't care for how much on my seat and my Dodge, I think this piece is smaller. So it was mounted the same place, and I like that spot, but the switch is easy to get to. But alright, so I got the air intake tube ran all the way forward, as if you can see, all the way up there. See that blue line going all the way up? And I ran it all the way up here. It's basically under the passenger side, closest to the windshield. And then here you see I got the air tank installed. And basically all I did for this one is I took and drilled and tapped the frame. So, and the two things you really need on the air system is a water drain and an emergency relief valve. I'd show you the emergency relief valve on this one, but it's all the way, see up here where my hand is, it's bolted up. But I got it all plumbed, at least for the rear so far. And I know that looks kind of silly and hangs low, but this is going to be a temporary place until we eventually, she wants to get the AEV rear bumper they just started making. Alright, and the last thing is hooking the front air fitting up to the bumper. Drill a hole through it, and pretty simple. Alright, if you like this, follow me on YouTube and Facebook. Thanks.